Hi, my name is Randy Beardsley, and today I would like to discuss the Beardsley Doctrine. This doctrine is a 20-article set of principles that I believe are necessary to adopt to build a brighter future for our children and our country. It identifies and rejects many of the failed beliefs and policies of today, and it replaces these failed ideals with sound principles and policies that are necessary to change the direction of our country for the better. So let's get started. Article 1. We reject the double standard dictated by the media and enforced by the government in our schools that allows some speech and ideas to be protected by the First Amendment, while other speech and ideas aren't and are labeled as misinformation or hate speech. Expression of thought or speech that differs from the media and the government's often incorrect view of our world. It's not racism, misinformation, or hate speech. Freedom of speech is not an exclusive right granted only to those who agree with the government. We support the First Amendment right that guarantees the freedom of speech and thought for all Americans. Article 2. We reject the failed logic that Americans become safer without the ability to protect themselves, and we reject the distorted interpretations of the Second Amendment that claim that American citizens don't have a right to bear arms. The very core of the Second Amendment is to enshrine the God-given right of self-defense for Americans. This amendment allows our citizens to protect themselves from all enemies, including the tyranny of the government if necessary. We support the Second Amendment, the protection it provides for our families from both domestic and foreign threats. Article 3. We reject the notion that our law enforcement officers are systematically racist or abusive. These baseless claims only incite violence against these brave men and women who risk their lives every day to keep us safe. We support and are very appreciative of their effort every day to make our community safe. We're counting on them for their continued service to preserve our God-given and constitutionally protected freedoms. Article 4. We reject the notion that Social Security benefits should be cut to those that spent a lifetime investing in this system, regardless of the trust fund amount or their retirement income. We support that no benefits will be cut, and any shortfalls will be covered by the general fund while the necessary tax structure is put into place for long-term system viability. Article 5. We reject the double standard that incites and legitimizes violence against some people and property while criminalizing even self-defense for the victims of this violence. We support aggressive enforcement of all of our laws against all criminals. And we support the immediate removal of governors, mayors, police chiefs, district attorneys that won't fulfill their obligation to defend the U.S. Constitution and protect U.S. citizens and their property from this lawless behavior. Article 6. We reject most media and the propaganda that they report in the place of the truth. Almost every news story is a carefully worded and convincing deception designed to manipulate emotions, separate listeners and viewers from the truth. Their reporting always prevents a meaningful discourse and a path to solution for any problem. By keeping us divided, fighting amongst ourselves, pitting us against each other based on race, sex, political party, religion, vaccine status, rather than focusing on our common goals and values, they continue to propel our country on a failed course. We support an end to the media and our elected officials' dishonest discourse that creates hate and division where it didn't exist. And we support honest and legitimate news that doesn't tell us how to think, but gives us accurate information on all sides of the issue to help us understand the issue enough so that we can solve problems, not create them and perpetuate them. Article 7. We reject the notion that endless government welfare programs that spend over $1 trillion each year to provide food, housing, medical care, and spending money are the solution to any problem. These programs are used to mask the lack of opportunity that our current policies have created, while creating an entitlement attitude that prevents several people from attaining the necessary pride and ownership in their work, homes, and communities that can only occur when you build those homes and communities with your own blood, sweat, and tears. We support the creation of government policies that create, not destroy, opportunity in our country, And when that's complete, we support a 5-time lifetime benefit limit for these programs. Article 8. We reject the notion that our country's military or our proud veterans are racist or terrorists. We support and appreciate our military and all our veterans of all races for their service and sacrifice, and America's counting on them to continue to fulfill their oath to defend the Constitution and protect our country from both foreign and domestic enemies. Article 9. We reject the policies that have allowed millions of Americans to be deemed unable to work so they can receive disability benefits. These programs, unnecessary in many cases, they drain money from our Social Security fund and the general fund. This is another program that's being used to mask the lack of opportunity in our country. We support the creation of real opportunity in our country. We also support the evaluation of each disability case, merciful treatment to those who truly need it, but the elimination of benefits for those that are capable of participating in the workforce. Article 10. We reject the environmental hysteria initiated by the media and most in our government. This scare tactic, it destroys hardworking American jobs, incentivizes companies just to move these jobs overseas to even pollute more in countries with less environmental oversight, and it turns a blind eye to the ever-increasing record pollution of the rest of the world. We support the continued effort in our country to reduce emissions, but not at the expense of our livelihoods. Our effort has led to a decline in emissions since 1990, not an increase, and our hard work and commitment to the environment will lead to continued success. Article 11. We reject the notion that endless and expensive foreign wars, foreign interventions, foreign aid benefit the American people. We demand an end to these failed policies. We refuse to wage war against other countries based on propaganda and false flag events. We support a foreign policy that's based on protecting the interest of our citizens in our country. Article 12. We reject the notion of unlimited government spending that's led to a $30 trillion national debt. This spending overreach is used by incompetent politicians to hide the loss of opportunity, to buy votes, and to reward political allies. The interest on this debt consumes almost 1 out of every 6 payroll tax dollars alone that should be spent investing in our country. We support a 7-year plan to reduce government spending to a balanced budget is attained. Article 13. We reject the notion that most of the current House, Senate, governors, state reps, mayors, consuls, judges, or district attorneys of either party represent the will of the people. Their vision for our country, it's a failure, and their willingness to support this America Last agenda can be described as ignorance and incompetence in the best case, just plain treason in the worst case. We support the replacement of them with Americans who will defend our Constitution, support this doctrine, and are willing to do the right thing for our families, our communities, and our country. Article 14. We reject the destruction of all our election laws that were developed by our forefathers so that fair elections could be conducted. A free and fair election where a fair hearing is given to all merits of each candidate's beliefs and character, it's the foundation of democracy. We support fair elections where our laws are followed, IDs required, a free exchange of information is allowed, and all votes are verified to be legal so that confidence can be restored to our election system. Article 15. We reject the notion that our refugee and immigration policies are necessary or helpful to our country. Our country can't provide opportunity for the people that are here already, as shown by our $1 trillion yearly welfare expense. We support refugee and immigration reform that severely limits refugees and legal immigration, and it stops illegal immigration. Article 16. We reject the notion of using our police, our law enforcement agencies, and our military to take away our constitutional rights rather than to protect them. These men and women have taken an oath before God to uphold the rights granted to our citizens in the Constitution. All other responsibilities, laws, or orders from anyone, including the president, they're subordinate to this duty. Therefore, we object to our government using these brave men and women as political pawns to subvert the Constitution, the will of the people, and the sanctity of their vow. We support our military and our police and law enforcement officers who choose to correctly and proudly honor their vow to the Constitution and the American people, first and foremost. Article 17. We reject the government, the school system, and the media's false narrative of white privilege, critical race theory, and structural and systematic racism. We reject any plan that advocates racism directed at any group as a solution to a problem. Racism is the act of attributing negative traits to a person based on their color, their race, their religion, rather than their character and their actions. All these unfounded theories of hate and privilege attribute negative traits to people simply because of their skin color. This is racism. Rather than promoting unity in our country by helping us to focus on our common goals and beliefs, these false and destructive programs, they create hate, distraction, division in our country. We demand the immediate end to state-sanctioned and media-encouraged racism. Article 18. We reject the notion that an open border is essential to our country. This lack of will by our leaders to fulfill their constitutional oath to protect America and its borders is not acceptable, and it's killing Americans. This failure allows deadly drugs into our country that poison our family and friends. It creates crime victims of our citizens. It promotes the smuggling of weapons and contraband into our country, encourages human slavery and smuggling in and out, and it permits the spread of deadly diseases such as COVID into our country. These dangerous policies result in the death of over 100,000 Americans per year and makes hundreds of thousands of Americans victims in their own country. We support the securing of our border as required by law to protect America and Americans from these dangers. Article 19. We reject the notion that the government has a right to politicize Americans' right to work and deny Americans the right to work based on arbitrary reasons without merit. We support the right to work for all Americans. We're going to fight every day for the American worker to ensure that the government doesn't get to decide who can work, feed their family, and have access to medical care based on the government's political whims. Article 20. We reject the notion of allowing unfairly traded products to undermine our manufacturing industry. Our government is focused on strengthening every other country's manufacturing base over the last 50 years while betraying our workers. This has led to a loss of millions of manufacturing jobs and almost a $900 billion trade deficit that was zero just 50 years ago. We understand the importance of a strong manufacturing sector. It creates opportunities and mobility for all our citizens. We support strong and fair trade laws, an end to trade treaties that punish American workers, an end to foreign country currency manipulations, and a return to a positive or zero trade balance. We will defend the American workers and industries, not global ones. We will level the playing field so American manufacturing, innovation, and determination can excel again. So that's the doctrine. It establishes a clear strategy to help solve the critical issues that are important to Americans. Although you've been told otherwise, there is a better way. And as we move forward, we'll start to use this doctrine like a lens to look through to help us to make decisions every day that will help our country, not hurt it. How? We'll get to that later. But first, for our next discussions, I'd like to examine each article in the doctrine in more detail. I want to show you why I think each one of these articles is important for our country, and why I think your support to implementing each one of them, it's a requirement for our success. Next time, a deeper dive into Article 1. I look forward to seeing you then.